Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose. Hope everybody had a fantastic holiday weekend. If you celebrated, hopefully you had a fun time with your family, your friends, all the good stuff. But we are now going to transition back over to gaming news, and surprisingly, it was a pretty busy weekend as a flash car out of nowhere just kind of emerged for the Nintendo Switch, and this is actually a major deal, not just for the homebrew scene, but the impact that this could potentially have on the current Switch and maybe even its successor is something that we need to discuss. I imagine Nintendo is on pretty high alert right now as long as this does prove to be legitimate. Then we're also going to talk about a big Xbox game that supposedly leaked out online. This has been making the rounds over the last few days, but I am skeptical of this one, and I'm going to explain why today. Let's go and jump right into things, though, starting off with that Insomniac hack once again. I mean, if anything else, it's been a very leaky holiday with Insomniac kind of being the centerpiece of that discussion. Well, they've actually now responded to the situation, and we can take a look here where they said, "Thank you for the outpouring of compassion and unwavering support. It's deeply appreciated. We're both saddened and angered about the recent criminal cyber attack on our studio and the emotional toll it's taken on our dev team. We have focused inwardly for the last several days to support each other. We are aware that the stolen data includes personal information belonging to our employees, former employees, and independent contractors. It also includes early development details about Marvel's Wolverine for PlayStation 5. We continue working quickly to determine what data was impacted. This experience has been extremely distressing for us. We want everyone to enjoy the games we develop as intended and as our players deserve. However, like Logan, Insomniac is resilient. Marvel's Wolverine continues as planned. The game is in early production and will no doubt greatly evolve throughout development, as do all our plans. While we appreciate everyone's enthusiasm, we will share official information about Marvel's Wolverine when the time is right." So I think the thing that Insomniac is really trying to convey to fans is that the Wolverine gameplay that so many have seen does not represent the final product. As I said last week, I think it's unfair how some people are kind of just saying that it's a reskinned Spider-Man and nothing else. I mean, this is the exact reason right here that developers often don't show early gameplay, because it just doesn't represent their full vision. There's a process that games have to go through, just like everything else in life, and in this situation, Wolverine has taken some animation, specifically with the traversal from Spider-Man, as a temporary measure until they can evolve that aspect to fit Wolverine more. More or less, they will be similar, but not as similar as we're necessarily seeing in some of those early gameplay leaks. Now, I think most people already kind of understand that, but I think that that's the big thing that Insomniac really wants fans to understand. Now, that's not the only Sony leak going around, though, because it's now also being claimed that the original God of War trilogy is set to return for the PlayStation 5. This is coming from Nick Baker over on the Xbox Era podcast. Maybe not where you would expect a PlayStation leak to come from, but Nick Baker has gotten some things correct in the past. He's also gotten some things wrong, so you can kind of take this as you will. But according to him, he's heard that the original God of War trilogy is coming. Now, he's currently unclear when it will release. He speculated maybe 2024 or 2025. And he's also unsure if this is just a straight-up port of what we got in a PS3, or if it's instead something a little bit more involved. Now, for me personally, I would just go in with tempered expectations. If this is indeed true, I just kind of go in with the expectation that it's more in line with a 4K remaster than anything else. And even if that's true, if these are just 4K remasters and nothing more, I'd be perfectly fine with that. These are still great games to this day, and honestly, if I were leading PlayStation, as long as it doesn't take too many resources, I'd remaster as many of these old games on a PlayStation 3 that I possibly could. And not just for console either, but also for PC as well. I mean, if they can't get PlayStation 3 backwards compatibility working for the PlayStation 5, remastering these old games like God of War, Eco, you have Killzone, there's Little Big Planet, Mod Nation Racers, etc., etc. The PS3 is filled with a fantastic library of exclusives. I think that there's a market for those games, those remasters, especially over on a platform like Steam. I think that those are very welcome additions and could make Sony quite a bit of money. As we talked about last week, AAA games are very expensive, but one way to kind of offset that is to have these smaller releases in between those big AAA games, because it could give them that constant stream of money. At the end of the day, though, I guess we'll see if this amounts to anything. But personally, I hope it does. A lot more people could then see the origins of the God of War story rather than just kind of viewing him as Dad of War. Now, let's go and switch gears here for a moment, though, and talk about this Nintendo situation, because this could actually be a huge deal if this holds true. So what's happening here is that out of nowhere, a video popped up on the internet showing somebody using a flash cart to play Nintendo Switch games on a stock Nintendo Switch. So the Switch doesn't need to be hacked. It doesn't need to be jailbroken or anything. This flash cart will be playable on every single Nintendo Switch right out of the box, regardless of firmware, or so it's claimed. We can actually take a look here at the tweet where this video first emerged. This was posted up by AfterTimeX, and they said, "We've obtained from one of our followers an exclusive video from an upcoming product this person is a beta tester for. Apparently a flash cart type device is coming pretty soon for the Nintendo Switch, which supports all firmwares, all console types, from all regions. Although it was long overdue, we were a bit skeptical, so we asked for some kind of proof. To our surprise, this person sent us soon after a video demonstrating the product in use, and it seems perfectly legit. Anyways, we were told the product is ready. They are apparently shipping the first units in January of 2024, so we should learn more very soon. We were promised more updates soon, so make sure to follow us for the latest news about the device and a lot more on AfterTimeX." So this is a big developing story. Supposedly it'll drop next month. I mean, that's crazy to think about. And once it's out there, it'll be difficult for Nintendo to completely stop something like this. More or less, though, what this flash cart does is it allows you to store Switch games on an SD card, multiple if you want, and then you insert the SD card into a custom-made cartridge to kind of trick the Switch into believing it's an actual legitimate Nintendo Switch cartridge that you can play on your console. Now, this could allow fans to back up their Switch games, which is kind of nice, but on the opposite side, this also opens the Switch to all kinds of nefarious ways of playing games, and that's the concern for Nintendo. We'll get into that more in a second, but from the video being shared online, one thing that was kind of strange was that instead of having a menu-based system where you can choose which game to play that's stored on the SD card, it apparently cycles through them every time you reinsert the cartridge into your Switch. So if you have a lot of games stored on one single card, I could see how that could be annoying, finding a specific game that you want to play. So it doesn't necessarily seem to be perfect, and you can also kind of question, will this damage your card reader over time? That all remains to be seen. But again, this is a huge developing story, and theoretically, if this actually holds true, and if it releases next month as claimed here, then this could impact Nintendo quite significantly. From their point of view, this could open them up to piracy problems in a very easy way, and while this is at the tail end of the Switch generation, I'm sure that they would still like to sell those games for years and years to come, especially if the Switch successor has backwards compatibility. So if the Switch 2 actually has backwards compatibility, as we all hope, well then, depending on how it works, this flash cart could theoretically work on the Switch successor as well. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it'll be able to run Switch 2 games per se, but it is an issue that could leak into the next generation console, and that's something that Nintendo is probably very mindful of as of this moment. What we do know with certainty, though, with absolute certainty, is that Nintendo is a very protective company. So I imagine they will do everything that they possibly can to limit a card like this. I'm sure Nintendo already has their ninjas on the matter as we speak. Now, if this does drop next month, though, it could prove difficult for them to completely stop, but what I imagine Nintendo will look into is their firmware updates as a possible solution. A firmware update that helps them detect these SD card readers, and with that, something for fans to maybe consider before they put one of these in their console are console bans. I could see a product like this resulting in a lot of console bans, and I think that's something to be mindful of. If a console ban concerns you, and if you want to keep your Switch online, even if you buy something like this with good intentions, you still might want to wait and see what happens to other people before buying into a flash cart like this. Right now, it's hard to tell what Nintendo would do, so I wouldn't rule anything out. But knowing Nintendo, I imagine that they will attempt to shut this thing down as much as they possibly can, and they're probably looking into this rumor right now as we speak. If anything else, though, this will be very interesting to follow, so I'll keep you updated as we learn more. Now, one last thing that I want to talk about, though, is this big Xbox rumor that's been making waves online over the last few days, and that's that id Software is working on a Star Wars Mandalorian game. Now, the Mandalorian show is incredibly popular, and there's been rumors of a game adaptation for quite a while. In fact, I've often heard speculation that Xbox is working on a Mandalorian game. So this isn't necessarily the first time that we've heard something like this. This, however, I believe is the first time I've heard that id Software might be involved. That's new. Though I would say that this is coming from maybe a questionable source. Now, some people seem to believe in this person. I'll let you kind of be the judge of this, but this is coming from Ecstasis TV. I keep seeing him being sourced as the person who leaked this id Software Mandalorian project. Now, I've seen this rumor pop up all over the place in the last few days. I've seen articles, I've seen social media posts just absolutely everywhere, but I am highly skeptical that this is actually true. For one, even Ecstasis, the leaker himself, goes on to say that he doesn't fully trust this because he has no confirmation. So there's not really a lot of confidence behind this supposed leak. But because it's been making waves online, we need to at least talk about its legitimacy or lack thereof. Here's my thing about this whole situation. I think a Mandalorian game might exist somewhere in some shape or form. As I said, the Mandalorian is incredibly popular, and one thing that we've really seen from Disney in the last few years is that they're making a major push into gaming. We have Marvel games everywhere by this point, and we have no shortage at all on Star Wars games. So why not a Mandalorian game? I think from a logical standpoint, a Mandalorian game does make some sense. Now, is id Software developing this game, though? That's the big question I have to ask, because I don't think there's actually any real evidence that supports this rumor. I think based off the very little that we know currently, I could actually make a better case that a new Quake game is in development by id Software. So that's the first thing that really stands out to me here. But there is a little bit more here because Jeff Grubb, Leaky Jeff, which I do trust more because I've seen more from him, responded to this rumor, and this is what he said. I've never heard anything about it. I looked into it and still couldn't find anything. I talked to a couple people, including a very good source. If it's real, I don't know, and that usually means it's not real. Now, Nick Baker also said he hasn't heard anything either. So I don't know. I just think that this rumor is questionable at best. I keep seeing this pop up over on social media, but if you've seen this rumor anywhere, I would go in with a grain of salt, to say the least. If it turns out to be true, then hey, that's great and everything. I know a lot of people would be very happy about that. But for me, I wouldn't go in with those expectations, and that's what I'm trying to say here. Just kind of temper your expectations, that way you're not disappointed if it's not true. Let me know what you all think about this, though. If it does turn out to be true, because who knows, would you be excited for id Software's take on The Mandalorian? Anyways, though, that's it for this video. Like I said, it's been a very leaky holiday, but until next time, peace out.